There's an old joke that most people would rather be in the casket than making the speech at a funeral. I reckon it's always better to be topside, of course, but I do understand the feeling of terror that public speaking can bring. So why is it that some people can get up and be completely confident and others go to jelly? In other words, why do we get the jitters? As I said earlier when I was chatting with Kat Davidson, I've tried my hand at stand-up in the past, but I never quite actually got over the nerves. I'd sit in my car an hour before the show, tear myself to pieces, second-guessing the material, looking in the mirror and thinking, how dare you? You know, why do you even bother? And I ended up giving it away altogether. But here I am. I'm loving chatting to you here on ABC Radio on your Sunday. I love performing in pretty much every other form. Maybe you're the life of the party with your mates, but you freeze up when you have to get up in the meeting at work and speak in front of people. Don't worry, you're not alone, and you might even be able to get some tips today that can help you next time you have to speak in public. I'm very happy to have two guests to join us on this discussion. Today we have Kitty Goodall, improviser, writer and teacher. Hello, Kitty.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks for being here. We also have Dr. Jason Wessel. He's a psychologist from North Brisbane Psychologists. Hello, Jason.
G'day, how are you, Joel?
I'm very well, guys. I'm really grateful that you're here. As I said, this is an issue I want to unpack personally, but I do think there's a lot to it for a lot of people out there. So, Kitty, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
You and I have both, I guess, dipped our toes in the murky and freezing waters of stand-up. How did that go for you?
Well, I think you and I bonded over this issue when we first chatted with one another, and that is both of us have performed in a whole bunch of different disciplines throughout our careers. As artists often do, you like to diversify so that you've got lots of opportunities to work. But whenever I tried stand-up comedy, I lost my confidence. My mojo just ran away, and I'd be on stage feeling like my legs were going to give way out from underneath me, like my knees. My brain kept thinking, your knees are going to stop working and you're going to just buckle. And I would perspire under the heat of the stage lights helped with that as well. And being Queensland, when aren't we perspiring in Queensland?
Well, that's
right?
fair. Yeah,
but,
always worth noting.
Yeah, but that would then, affect my makeup, which would run into my eyes, and then, my mind would be fixated on these little things that, would, I think, in the end, take away a lot of that confidence that I had in other, areas when I perform. I've like you, I've done public speaking, I've hosted, I've emceed shows, I've sung, danced, acted,
and you're fine,
scripted, and absolutely fine. Love it. Maybe a little bit nervous beforehand, but once I'm up there, do you get that too, where you're a bit nervous beforehand sometimes, but then once you're on, you're sort of
a little bit. Yes, you'd be, I guess, dishonest to say I didn't get some butterflies, but they're sort of cancelled out by excitement because I have so much fun, and I guess from my own experience with stand-up, I got to ask. A, did it ever get better for you? And B, how long did you stick it out for?
I think on and off. I tried stand-up in lots of different forms for a couple of years. So solo, with a partner, sketch, that sort of thing, a few different ideas. But I never really got to that point where I felt comfortable, like I belonged, like the audience liked me enough to want to have me there.
Okay.
And so it was, and I think, just all these little mind games that I was having to deal with during the show were, and also it was with other formats, I was always able to get up and perform them, sober. With comedy, I think I used alcohol as a crutch.
Yeah, I confess to that as well. Dr. Jason Wessel, if you don't mind, we'll go to you. What's going on in Kitty's brain and her nervous system when all of this is happening? Not just Kitty, in our brains, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, what you're both describing is really a physical response to fear, It's really a sign of the limbic system taking over, adrenaline flooding your system, affecting your heart rate, muddying your thoughts, overwhelming you, often affecting other physical behaviors like your breathing. Breathing tends to get really rapid and shallow in that kind of state of terror. Also, often people get the runs. I don't know if either of you notice that, or if you want to admit that on radio.
Look, we admit a lot of things on ABC Radio on your Sunday, Jason, but I won't go there today. But it's interesting because these physical effects are, I guess, widespread.
Yeah. It's your sympathetic nervous system. So it's really the part of you that evolved super early to help you survive, the fight or flight response that I'm sure you both heard of. I think what you're both describing happening over a long period of time as well, years, it's regularly reinforced that kind of situation, triggering this fight or flight response, activating your nervous system, and then strengthening that pair. So every time you step up on that stage in that particular context, it's like, boom, your brain's back there. You're back on the savannah. The eyes of the lion are kind of gleaming behind the bush.
Yeah, you're right back there. That's really well put, because it does feel a bit like that, Kitty. There's a pack of hungry lions sitting in the audience going, I dare you to tell a joke. Jason, I'm wondering, can this level of, I guess, nervousness be unlearned or changed?
Yeah, I think it can. You both described doing it for a number of years, so it's probably going to be quite strong at this stage. But Kitty, you're also describing that you tried a few different contexts. You tried solo, you tried with partner, you tried sketch. I'm just wondering, were any one of those better or worse for different noticeable reasons?
Yeah, I think with a stage partner, when I had a double act going for a while, I think that was a little bit easier because you've got that safety net of another human being there with you.
That's
taking some of the audience's vibes.
Yep, I agree with that 100%, Kitty. I had a performance partner, and we did, Sydney Comedy Festival and things like that a few years, and it was such a blast, and it was not the same experience whatsoever.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we'd call that diffusion of responsibility, which is really powerful and helpful.
Wow. This is ABC Radio on your Sunday. I'm with writer and teacher Kitty Goodall, and Dr. Jason Wessel is a psychologist from North Brisbane Psychologists. Jason, you were about to explain a little bit about strength in numbers when it comes to performance anxiety.
Yeah, well, actually what I was hoping to do was highlight not so much strength in numbers is the only way to get through this, but that, there are variables in every situation, and that your fear or the strength of your response is somewhat on a spectrum between, like pretty mild and pretty extreme. Imagine if you had to do stand-up on live national TV in front of a crowd of 100,000 and the Prime Minister's sitting next to you, you may be more terrified than a Wednesday night, 11 p.m. slot when everyone's already, had a few drinks.
Wow.
Not to say that the smaller context wouldn't still terrify you, but I think, it's somewhat intuitive that there's a spectrum there. And I think, again, you both put yourself in a situation multiple times, and I was explaining a bit before how it reinforces the terror and the fear, almost like it's subconscious, like your body starts doing this and hijacks your mind, and your mind turns into chaos and chaotic thoughts. That exposure is not enough. Exposure alone generally isn't enough to get you over the fear and, reteach your nervous system if every time you put yourself in that situation, all you're doing is reinforcing that pattern.
Wow.
So in order to unlearn that, what you need to do is pair the exposure with down regulation strategies, which is basically ways to calm your nerves. And it's easiest to do that when you play with enough variables of the situation. So smaller crowd, late at night, with a partner, a situation where you're not likely to be overwhelmed but still activated. There's a sweet spot of being excited or nervous that you can practice other strategies to calm down. Yeah. Ideally ones that are fully within you. Alcohol is one of them, but it's also relying on something outside of you. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking about breathing techniques. I'm talking about mindfulness techniques. I'm talking about distractions. I'm talking about positive self-talk, those sorts of strategies to bring you to your center and calm down. So when you put yourself in that situation where you're elevated but not overwhelmed, and you get through that, and you do that again and again and again, and you develop a sense of mastery that you can do it, and you know you can do it.
Yep.
Until that situation that used to be elevating but not overwhelming is now a little bit boring, you can kind of shift the needle and go, okay, now I can probably take a step towards something that would have terrified me a little bit more, but now I've got confidence that I can actually control this, and this is something that I can do.
Wow. So I guess if we had maybe persisted for longer, we might have been able to work through some of that. Kitty, I want to ask you, if you don't mind, you're a teacher, you're amazing, you're multi-talented, you've got qualifications from Trinity College in London, you've been teaching for years.
Yes.
Are there any techniques that you've ever taught others in dealing with this kind of thing?
Yes, and they've all been touched upon.
Oh, great.
So, breathing techniques. What else was mentioned? Also, positive self-talk, mindfulness, and distracting yourself before going on stage all help. Doing something fun or silly, or having a bit of a shakedown or a dance-off, or something that just takes your mind off things and brings you a bit of joy can help as well. But yeah, I think it's interesting mentioning the fight or flight too, because I think the comedy audiences are a little bit, I don't want to say rude or angry, but a bit more hostile than other audiences are sort of friendlier. So your theatre audience is friendlier, your improv audience is friendlier. When you're playing music on stage, generally the crowd's friendlier as well. So I think with stand-up, it is a little bit more terrifying because the crowd has that that energy of like, if you don't live up to our expectations, we're going to heckle you, we're going to boo you, we're going to give you a hard time, and that might be a little bit scary, feeling, like they could attack me.
And
Can
Jason,
I ask, Kitty?
Yes, please.
What's your measure of success in stand-up versus in teaching? Like, how do you know that you can walk off the stage or out of the classroom and be like, you know what, I did the best I could and I can live with that?
Yeah, so stand-up, obviously you want to walk off stage knowing that you've given everyone a good time and they've had a really good laugh and they've enjoyed themselves. For me, it's about bringing more joy to the world. I know other comedians have other aspects they want to explore, like pushing people's buttons or shocking people or that sort of thing. So it really depends on the comic. And yeah, with teaching, I think you see the measure of your success in what your students achieve.
Yeah.
So if they do something good, then you think, wow, I helped with that in some small way.
Bit more long term, you don't see it straight away.
Yeah.
One of the big differences, apart from the immediate feedback, is also what we call like where you place your locus of control, which again is a very psychologically based term of is it within you that you define success and you control that completely, or is it within those around you and the environment? And in stand up, if your measure of success is people having a good time, you can't control that. You can influence it, but ultimately, it's not entirely up to you. And so you're forever putting your measure of worth or success in the night in some degree of random chance and things you can't control. And I wonder if there's another way that you can go through the same motions and do your bit, but instead turn the responsibility or the acknowledgement of success on yourself.
Dr. Jason Wessel and Kitty Goodall, teacher and all-round performer, I really appreciate your time unpacking this issue this afternoon. Kitty, thank you for sharing your experiences. And Jason, thank you for helping us understand.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it, guys.